If your next microeconomics exam is in less than 48 hours and you feel like you're about to fail it, I'm a tutor and we can save your grade in one night. Because the truth is, all microeconomics professors are pulling from the same playbook to make their exams. There's only so many ways you can test on these concepts. And this cram kit here covers all the core concepts you need to know and the must-know problems that you need to know how to solve, all with guided video walkthroughs so that you're never lost along the way. This is basically like having me as your tutor the night before your exam. If we had a 5.5 hour study session, I just walked you through literally everything you needed to know. Now, whenever you're ready to get started with the cram kit, click the link in my bio. But in the meantime, I just want to walk through with you all the units and all the concepts that this cram kit covers. All right, first up here, opportunity cost. The most important thing to remember is that implicit cost is the value or income or profit that we miss out on from the next best alternative. Not all alternatives, just the next best one. All right, next up here, marginal analysis. We will consume units up to the point where MB equals MC. In other words, find the change in total benefit and total cost for each unit. And the one where MB equals MC, that's how many units you should consume. All right, next up here, PPFs or PPCs. What you ultimately got to remember with these is that curve right there, that line represents the maximum attainable output for a country between two goods on the Y and X axis. So it should produce along that curve. If it's beyond, that's unattainable. The country can't sustain that output of the two goods. And if it's within the curve, then they're being inefficient. All right, next up here, advantages in trade. This deals with comparative advantage problems. And remember, whenever you're calculating the opportunity cost for a given good, the other good goes over so that we can find how many units of the other good we must sacrifice for one unit of the good that we're considering. All right, next up here, supply and demand. I'm going to group these together because there's one type of problem that I want to make sure you're prepared for. If it says, given this change in price, how is that going to impact supply or demand? It's not. It's going to impact quantity supplied or quantity demanded, because a change in price is simply moving to a new y-axis value on the current supply or demand curves and resulting in a new quantity on the x-axis. All right, next up here, equilibrium. The biggest thing I want to make sure that you remember is you're finding the price where quantity demanded equals quantity supplied. On a graph, that's where the curves intersect. On a table, that's the row where the supply and demand equal one another. And then with equations, you're going to set them equal to one another, solve for price, and then plug that back into either equation to get the equilibrium quantity. Next up here, elasticity. Ultimately, this just comes down to percent change in quantity divided by percent change in price. And when that change in quantity is greater than the change in price, then our demand or supply is elastic. Versus when that change in quantity is less than the change in price, our demand or supply is inelastic. Next up here is price elasticity. This digs into finding the elasticity between 2 points on the supply or demand curve. And whenever you've got two coordinates, you're going to plug them into the midpoint method to solve for the elasticity between those points. In other words, at the midpoint between them. All right, other elasticities. This digs into income elasticity of demand and cross-price elasticity of demand. And ultimately, the only thing that's changing here is our denominator. With income elasticity of demand, we're going percent change in quantity divided by the percent change in income, not price. And then with cross-price elasticity, that's the percent change in quantity divided by the percent change in the price of the other good. All right, next up here is surplus. The most important thing to understand about this unit is that surplus is simply like how good of a deal consumers or producers are getting from selling the good. You're just taking their willingness to pay or sell and then comparing that against the equilibrium price to determine how good of a deal they're getting. All right, next up here, excise taxes. My biggest tip to you is shift the supply curve up by the amount of the tax. It might sound counterintuitive, but by shifting the supply curve up, we're actually shifting it to the left and decreasing supply by the amount of the tax. All right, next up here is price controls. And my biggest reminder to you here is that on whatever problem you face, make sure that floors are existing above the current equilibrium and ceilings are existing below the current equilibrium. Otherwise, they will be non-binding price controls. All right, next up here is international trade. Remember, if the world price exists above the domestic price, in other words, the current equilibrium price where the supply and demand curves intersect, then producers will export units to foreign countries. Whereas if the world price is below the domestic equilibrium price, then consumers will import units. All right, next up here is externalities. The biggest thing I want you to remember here is that if the private market quantity is greater than the socially optimal quantity, then that means that we're dealing with a negative externality. Doesn't matter how the curves are shifting, society just wishes that less units were outputted. Whereas on the flip side, if the private market quantity is less than the socially optimal quantity, then we're dealing with a positive externality. Society wishes that more units were outputted. All right, next up here is types of goods. Just remember that excludability deals with whether or not you have to pay to consume the good, and then the rivalrous nature of a good is whether or not there's a limited quantity available. All right, next up here, poverty. Whenever you're calculating the Gini coefficient, remember you're finding the percentage area between perfect equality and then the country's Lorenz curve. It's not below the Lorenz curve, it's between. That area between basically tells us how far off that country is from perfect equality, and in turn the Gini coefficient value. All right, next up, cost curves. Remember, the marginal cost curve intersects the average variable and average total cost curve at their minimum points, because once marginal cost rises above them, it drags those curves up with it. Next up here is perfect competition. Remember, a firm should shut down only if price is less than average variable cost. And remember, this is a temporary shutdown, and the firm will re-enter the market once price rises above. They'll only permanently exit the market if price is foreseen in the long run to be less than average total cost. Next up here is monopolies. Remember, when you're finding the profit maximizing point, go to the MR equals MC point and then go up to the demand curve to derive price. It's not just where the MR equals MC point is like with perfect competition. Next up here is monopolistic competition. I want to make sure that you remember that their cost curve graphs look like monopolies, but like perfect competition, they achieve no economic profit in the long run. So ultimately, the ATC curve will rest along the demand curve at that MR equals MC point. All right, next up here is oligopolies, and specifically I want to focus on payoff matrix here. You can find the Nash equilibriums by going cell by cell in that 2x2 grid and assessing if either party is enticed to switch their strategy. Because if they are, that is not going to be a Nash equilibrium. The market can't rest there. And it is possible for a game to have more than one Nash equilibrium. You ultimately just got to go cell by cell to assess. All right, next up here, the factor market. Marginal revenue product is simply the marginal product times the price that the good is sold at, because that is ultimately the additional revenue that each unit of a resource is bringing in, whether that resource is labor, land, or capital. All right, and lastly here, labor. Wherever the labor demand and supply curves intersect, that point we're going to bring over to the individual firm as a horizontal marginal revenue cost curve. Because typically speaking, you're going to be dealing with perfect competition resource markets. Whatever wage or rental price the market is setting is going to be the horizontal marginal resource cost for individual firms. All right, that was a ton right there, but that's just a high-level overview of what we walked through together in the Microeconomics Cram Kit. So if you're ready to save your grade with me before you take your exam and walk through this entire class together, click the link in my bio.